Hey, it's Danny Crichton, and this is the Riskgaming podcast by Lux Capital. We recently hosted the Lux AI Summit in New York City, bringing together hundreds of artists and engineers under the banner of the AI Canvas. One of the key subjects was the future of filmmaking, where generative AI models are triggering a great transformation with this now classic art form. Along with Laurence Pevsner, joining me on the podcast today are Kirby Ferguson and Matamala Ortiz. Kirby is a longtime filmmaker noted for his multiple documentary series on remix culture. Meanwhile, Ale is the co-founder and chief design officer of Lux company Runway, the generative AI studio for anyone producing films. The four of us talk about the filmmaking recession currently underway in Los Angeles, how AI connects with remix culture, the coming convergence of narrative forms like films and video games, and what the future of artists will look like with co-intelligences. Let's dive in. So Ale and Kirby, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
So I want to lay down the line because I think the Wall Street Journal about a week or two ago was talking about the future of LA. And they had a massive deep dive portfolio on the filmmaking industry. And obviously it's in recession. Jobs are down 25, 30%. Many people are looking for new jobs, new work. And a lot of this is to do with the strike 2 years ago, writers' rooms, et cetera. There's also an AI component here, which is that filmmaking is entirely changing in the next 5 to 10 years. The solutions we use in the past seem to not be what we're going to project forward. So I think I would just love to get from both of your perspectives. You're a filmmaker, you're building one of the core platforms for the future of filmmaking. What is filmmaking going to look like in the next couple of years?
What a nice softball question to open with. What's your background? What did you have for breakfast? Wow, holy crap. I'm kind of skeptical about how much AI has to do with it, really. I'm not sure that it has much of a role. It seems like it's more systemic, economic thing that I don't think it's driven so much by AI. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think when I talk to studios, to teams, one of the things that come more often is that films have become really expensive to create, and that's one of the main reasons why some of the films have not they're not making more films anymore. So I don't attribute everything to what's happening, but I think it's going to transform. And I think on the positive side, the way that we see it is that it's going to enable to create new things that were harder to create before. We're already seeing how some teams are getting greenlit with projects that they were not getting greenlit before because they were either too expensive or too ambitious to create now. So we're seeing it from a very positive side because we are seeing how people who were in the industry are now able to create those things that they have in some folder.
I think there's just some oversupply going on for a while there too, right? Like, do we need this much Star Wars or whatever? I can't. We've all got playlists. We've all got our playlists where I've got 100 shows in it or whatever that I'd like to watch, and I just don't have time to watch. And I feel like oversupply is one of the things that was going on, and we're correcting and coming out of that. That's my guess.
Yeah, well, as I think about oversupply, one of the pros and cons of AI in terms of this field is as we talked about, it'll empower so many more people to become creators, right? We have vibe coding already in AI. We're starting to get into vibe filmmaking, right? I'm curious what you think is going to happen as we get more and more people get access to these tools to create the kinds of films that maybe previously they wouldn't have been able to because it was too expensive.
Yeah, for us that was been one of the key things since we started democratization of who can actually tell the stories. I come from Chile. I went to film school. I dropped out from film school, but I wanted to be a filmmaker. But having the idea of creating a film back in Chile was even more crazy than perhaps creating an AI lab here in the US. Creating a film is hard. Is complicated, and it's complicated everywhere, and even in the traditional places. And we do believe that with these tools, with this technology, we're going to start seeing more stories being told. We operate under that phrase of there's so many stories that haven't been told yet, and I think generative AI is going to be one of the things that will unlock those things to happen from different creators around the world. We ran an AI film festival. Last edition, we received 3,000 films from teams all over the world. They created films that ranged 5 to 7 minutes. And those were local stories or stories that were from different places of the world that people wanted to tell that they couldn't. So we truly believe this is going to democratize who is going to be telling the next stories.
Any favorites from that? I mean, we were at Lincoln Center, right? The film festival. Any favorites that you want to call out?
The winner is a must watch. It's really, really good. It's a story about, you watch it?
No, I haven't seen it yet. I want to see it though.
It's a story of like how many images that you can create within an image. So if you take the math of the pixels who conform an image, you can create infinite, this is a finite number, but you can create all possible images within an image, and it's a very well narrated film.
I think like regular people will probably make the most exciting stuff with these tools. Like it's like if you look at the history of any sort of genre, any sort of art, like it's poor people, it's amateurs, like blues music, like jazz, like whatever. It's like poor people that are outside the system that are looking at these things in new ways and creating new stuff. So I think like whole new genres are going to emerge out of this, and new styles of filmmaking and new voices, and that's probably the most exciting realm of it to me, rather than just professionals who are trying to like get cheaper or make their stuff higher quality or whatever. I think it'll be interesting to see the wild and crazy stuff that comes from just regular people.
I'm reminded of careers like Chris Nolan, whose original film, even before Memento, was like a $100,000 budget film that he sort of did in film school and was sort of like a demo play. And then did Memento, is also a very, very cheap film, and has progressively grown to these massive Hollywood budgets. But I think to your point, this democratization means that there are many more Chris Nolans who, if they had the opportunity to have these democratized tools to be able to show what they could do, potentially there's a lot more opening. Now, Kirby, I think you've been a filmmaker a very long time, but one of the themes that comes up.
I knew I just started. It's been like a year.
Someone did ask me today, what year did you graduate? And I was like, this is getting a little more sensitive than it used to be when I was like straight out of undergrad. But you've had this theme in your work for a long time around remix, this idea of recombining previous material. And remix culture is something that we see in certain fields, certain subcultures, and then others it's sort of verboten. It's sort of considered offensive. You're not an original artist. Talk about AI and remix, and what do you see the future of the culture there?
I mean, it's super fascinating because AI is a remix, of course. Like it's deep learning. It's based on training on existing stuff and then creating new stuff out of the old stuff. And I think a version of that is what we do for all sorts of creativity, right? So it sort of mirrors us, I think, in a way where, frankly, like some of the human imagination magic is not there in what deep learning is doing. Like there's obviously like a lot of stuff that's getting that is not in there in the mix. Mysterious aspects of the human imagination are not there, but there's this interesting parallel between the two, between how they create things, how it creates things, and how we create things. So it's interesting just learning about how AI works and using it, because I do think it is sort of this mirror of how we work. Like, we don't create out of nowhere. Like we all learn music, we read books, we watch movies, and we start copying what other people are doing, and then we start putting our spin on it and combining it with other things that we get from other places. So it's this really interesting, like the two sides. I think like we can learn more about creativity by using these tools.
Yeah, someone when I was in undergrad, I had an English professor who said like all of everything you've read is just a remix of the Bible, the Iliad, and the Odyssey. And if you just read those three works, then you kind of know everything else that's every other reference that's coming. I'm wondering, as we think about AI as it enters into film, what you actually think even defines AI in film, right? I'm thinking about we've had CGI for forever, right? And that's like a form of using like computers to advance film technology. Like, do you think there's a distinction, or are we just looking at kind of like a curve of different kinds of advancing technology that we're just going to keep using as filmmakers adapt and use new tools?
Yeah, to me, I think we're using, even us with the AI Film Festival, we're using AI as a preface to say like some AI was being used to create this idea, but I don't think we're going to be talking about AI films in a near future. It's just going to be about films, and most likely it's going to be new kinds of films. Now we're talking about films because that's the thing that we, such as like talking about remix, this is the things that we have been doing in the past. This is the things that we know we can create. But I do believe that as this technology progresses with new capabilities such as real-time, interactive outputs and multi-shot sequences, I think we can aim to have different kind of stories, different kind of ways of telling stories that perhaps are going to blend what we today know as films and what we know about video games, and it's going to be perhaps as a mix, and maybe it's going to be named differently and have a completely different naming for that. And I think then we're going to start talking about that new medium rather than this is made with AI or not.
Yeah, my guess is there's going to be like a gray area between AI, or they're just going to blend together into one giant thing. Like filmmaking and AI will sort of blend together, and like I can see AI being a lot like CGI was. Like I can see it doing a lot of that work, like generating special effects and composites and stuff like that. I can see it taking over a lot of that work. So I think they're all going to kind of blend together. And I would guess, I mean, I'd be curious what you think, like going to a particular platform rather than that like I'm using Photoshop now, and instead it being more like I'm using Photoshop, but I'm using Runway. Here's a good idea, you can steal this. Runway into Photoshop, or like whatever's in Photoshop, sort of like Perplexity is now, you know, like there's multiple tools within your tool and you can call on them when you need them.
That's great, because we have just released something on our tool that
This wasn't planned. This was not a pitch setup.
Oh my God.
Yes, we understand that the best workflows are the workflows that you bring the best things that are possible for you to create whatever you want to create. So we just announced yesterday a tool that's called Workflow, where you can start combining different models, third-party models, our models, different tools and capabilities into whatever you want, and create that as a standalone or use case package app that you can reuse and share with your teams. So one thing that we have learned working with artists for over 8 years, and us ourselves being artists, that no artist has the same workflow. Everyone has their own unique way of working, and they want to use different things at different times. So we want to provide them with the best that we can offer from whatever is in the market.
Does Runway have an API?
Let me ask, I mean, as a filmmaker, when you think about authorial vision, right, we have this real focus on a director is in charge of the shot, the director is in charge of the film, all the shots, all the things, and you obviously work with teams and editors, et cetera. You know, I think one of the biggest challenges with Hollywood over the last 15, 20 years is that teams got very, very big. You watch the credits for a blockbuster, hundreds, you know, thousands of people involved in producing one of these films, hundreds of millions of dollars at stake. And that prevents you from having that kind of single authorial vision. You have to work with a huge level of collaboration. I'm curious, when you think about AI, is it a collaborative agent for you? Does it empower the kind of authorial vision? And how do you sort of think about the future of filmmaking in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, that's totally how I think of it. Like, I really like Ethan Mollick's book, Co-Intelligence, on this subject. Like, I like the idea of it being sort of a quirky, brilliant, weird collaborator. Like, that's the way I look at it. That's like brilliantly good at some things and incredibly inept and stupid at other things. Yeah, I definitely look at it as a kind of collaboration. But I don't think of it as I'm collaborating with a machine. I'm collaborating with the entire history of human expression, right? Like everything that was on the internet that I got trained on, I'm collaborating with that. So to me, it's this social thing where you're collaborating with the human imagination itself and the culture and voice that all of us have developed, you know, over the decades.
Yeah, to me, I think I see it as there are different layers for that. One is as a creator, as a creative, the way that we design our tools and our software and our models are to be a collaborator, to empower our artists to do the things that they want to create and to help them achieve their ideas. We're not creating or designing systems that are one prompt, one shot, give me a final output. But I do realize there are some use cases that might be very powerful on that end. And that's more the consumer side of things rather than the creative kind of like workflow. So, but even within the creative workflow, I do think that the collaborator can also expand to be something that can be more autonomous, to give you some results that perhaps you were not thinking on, maybe are too complicated to do, or maybe you just need someone else that can run and do that thing. So when we think on a feature film, a creator might have some ideas, and like take this as a place, and maybe they have one scene that happens here, and they want to have fine control over that scene, and we want to provide as much control as they can to achieve that idea of that scene. But perhaps within that same feature film, there is a sequence film of a car going through Manhattan that is like 1 minute long. Maybe we can think on systems that are more autonomous, that can create multi-shot scenes that can deliver like a longer take with different scene cuts that can also work for that creative. On the other side, more on the consumer side of things, I think there is a future where we will be generating videos to consume on demand for different use cases, for learning, for support, for entertainment in some cases that perhaps are going to be a little bit more disposable, even for entertainment, but they are going to be run on its own by the machine. But the way that we are approaching it today is to be a collaborator for artists.
So the corollary to you, so earlier today you were talking about this pattern between gaming and film. So when I think of film, I think of Paul Thomas Anderson's film is in theaters right now. He did it for VistaVision, available in 4 theaters anywhere in the world, one of which happens to be in New York. But that is like the definitive and a very specific, like that is the way he wants it to be watched. With AI, you suddenly have this capability to say, not only can it be different formats, it can be in different languages. We can auto-translate, including with lips. It can be dubbed. It doesn't look like the 1990s Japan dubs of anime. Now it's completely professional. You can't even tell it wasn't in the original language. And you could potentially change plot lines. It could be adaptive. The story itself could change. The film could change. Does this worry you? Does that change the definition of filmmaking? I mean, is that a spectrum from it is my vision, it is my frame, and that is the only answer? Or is there a world where you say, look, it's a choose your own adventure. My film is a world and environment. It's something that you can explore. I'm crafting that world and I'm world building, but ultimately the AI and the 3D engine that's underwriting it can actually do most of the heavy lifting.
Oh, I mean, like I think the scenario that you outlined there, where it can translate it and convincingly convey it to cultures that don't speak your language, that seems like a total win for me. Like that's complete victory because like otherwise they don't see it and they don't know I exist. So even if it's an imperfect representation of it in the way that like dubbing or subtitling was, up until now, but I think that's an improvement, that it actually has a voice in it, the voice is synced to your mouth or whatever. Like that seems like a total win for me, and that seems like a total victory. So I think like anything that can extend the reach of a filmmaker is definitely a huge win. So I love that aspect of it.
Yeah, Bong Joon-ho calls the captions the 1-inch barrier between us discovering all of the film out there. Yes.
Mostly for an American perspective.
Yes.
I think everyone else figures out the barrier.
That's right.
The barrier or the dam was broken.
No, he wasn't saying it in a kind way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, to me, this is one of the most interesting opportunities, to be honest, for filmmaking, that like we shouldn't be designing this type of technology to continue doing everything that we have done in the past the same way. We should push for new ways of working and new ideas and new ways of telling a story. So for me, it's like today we have films that ends.
Yeah.
Why do they have to end? Why they cannot keep going? Why not like a viewer can take action and continue the story, or maybe see it from a different angle? Why a TV show also has to end? Why do we have only one season finale? Why we can have the same season finale from a different character, from a different point of view? And I think those are all of the opportunities that now we can start considering. I'm not saying that we are there yet, but these are the challenges or the opportunities that we should be looking at.
Yeah, that's super exciting because we always sort of stick with these existing paradigms, right? Like the internet started as sort of like a magazine or like a newspaper or whatever, right? And like TV started as like a live show, like a variety show or whatever. So like we're always kind of building on top of this pre-existing concept that we've got, but what it actually becomes is something else that nobody could have imagined.
We might get that infinite jest David Foster Wallace predicted.
Well, I was thinking more like The Sopranos, a very specific final shot in which it cuts to black with a smash cut. And in your world, they would turn back on, and the next season would continue on. Well, Alejandro, Kirby, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us.